Hey, what's going on? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Peace and power and elevation be to all of you. I hope everybody had a good Eid and a good Ramadan. For those of you that practice Ramadan or celebrate, um, yeah, I hope you guys had a good one. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself and all that. So yesterday I was doing this video about the Nabatean religion and pre-Islam, the pre-Islamic Arabia. I was continuing where I left off about the Petra, like the city of Petra, which is now a ancient city that was located in Jordan, and yeah, it was located in Jordan, and however now it's like pretty much a lot of stuff has been lost in that city. So Petra to Jordan was what Dubai is to Saudi Arabia. I'm gonna say it again. Petra to Jordan is what Dubai is to the Middle East. Okay. So that's what Petra was. All right. So I went over there. So now I'm just going to go into what the Nabatean religion beliefs were, and I'm going to share the sources. So I'm going to go back over these things because the other day when I did the video, the connection went out on me and it was like really horrible. So I'm gonna just get through all this stuff, all right? So I'm just going to show you the sources that I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Wikipedia. Go back to Wikipedia. Okay? And then I'm going to go into what is the Nabatean religion. Then I'm going to talk about the different deities. Okay? And the places they worship. All right? So I'm going to go through this article real fast. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, and all that great stuff. All right. All right. So the Nabatean religion has encompassed both Christendom and an earlier form of Arab polytheism practiced in Nabatea, an ancient Arab nation which was well settled by the 3rd century BCE and lasted until the Roman annexation in 106 CE. So the Nabateans, they were polytheistic and worship a wide variety of local gods as well as Baal-Shem, Isis, Greco-Roman gods such as Tyche and Dionysus or Dionysus. If I'm mispronouncing them, forgive me. They worship their gods at a temple, high places, and Bethels. They were mostly aniconic and preferred to decorate their sacred places with geometric designs. Much knowledge of the Nabateans' grave goods have been lost due to extensive looting throughout history. They made sacrifices to their gods, performed other rituals, and believed in an afterlife. So now the word aniconic means that it basically means they did not like have idols. hanging around, you know what I'm saying, when they did their worship or whatnot. So if someone is anaconda, that means they don't have idols like of human beings or animal like, you know what I'm saying. They don't really, I guess the Nabatean people didn't really practice that so often, you know. So that's like that with you'll find that in the Islamic culture, they are very anaconic. They don't believe in idol worshiping. They don't believe in having pictures hanging on the wall. They don't of human beings or animals. Now they'll have a picture of something that's very abstract or have a symbolic meaning. So like they have a picture of a Kaaba or the picture of the Arabic calligraphy or a picture of a masjid or something. Yeah, that's what they have a picture of in Islamic culture. And some Christianity religion is the same way. You know, they don't believe in idolatry, idol worshiping, so they don't carry a picture of idols. The only thing they might carry a picture of is like a picture of a cross or something like that. That represents Jesus dying on the cross or something. All right. And same with the Jewish culture too. I forgot to put them out there. They don't do idol worshiping either. They yeah. So it's pretty much like that with the Abrahamic religions for the most part. But that's how the Nabatean people were. They preferred to have decoration with geometric designs. That's what they prefer to have around their sacred temples or whatnot. But let's look at the gods and the goddesses they worship. All right, so most of the deities in the Nabatean religion were part of the pre-Islamic Arab pantheon. All right, with the addition to foreign deities such as Isis and Atagatis. So Dushara, a Nabatean deity whose name means Lord of the Mountain, he was widely worshipped in Petra. Dushara is venerated as a supreme god by the Nabateans. Oftentimes, he is referred as Dushara and all the gods. He is considered the god of the Nabatean royal house. All right, so Manat, she was known as the goddess of fates and was worshipped by the followers for reign and victory over enemies. She was the wife of god Hubal. And Alat, who is referred to as the great goddess who is in Iran, she is widely known in northern Arabia and Syria. The deity is associated with the goddess Athena in the Haran. Alat is venerated in Palmyra, okay? And it says her temple had no sign of performing blood rituals. It is believed that Alat and Al-Uzza were once a single deity which parted ways in the pre-Islamic Meccan tradition. Pre-Islamic Arabs believe that the goddess Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat were the daughters of Allah through Nabatean inscription also describe her as Allah's wife instead. All right. So Al-Uzza in her Arabic name is believed to mean the mightiest one. She is venerated in the city of Petra. Her cult is mainly focused on Quraysh and Horad Valley north of Mecca. The goddess is connected with a type of betel with stars-like eyes. Al-Uzza is associated with Greco-Roman goddess Aphrodite. All right, so then it goes on to talk about Al-Qutb, one of the lesser known deities of the Nabatean. The deity is said to have a temple in Gia and was also venerated in Iran. There is confusion when it comes to deciding whether this deity is masculine or feminine. In Gia, the deity is believed to be a female and is therefore called Al-Qutb. There are instances when the deity is believed to be masculine. For example, in Qajrat, was it Qajraway in Egypt, and the deity is called Qutbah. The majority of the evidence leads to believe that this deity is female, for there are betels of Al-Qutbah that are similar in design to those of Al-Uzza. All right, so and Baal Shamin is a Syrian deity who becomes a Nabatean god with the expansion of the Nabatea into southern Syria. All right. His name means Lord of heaven, associating the deity with the skies. He is said to be originating from the storm god of Hadad, who worshipped in Syria and Mesopotamia. Right, so it goes on and on and on, and then look, check this out. It goes down to talking about Isis. So Isis is a foreign deity to the Nabateans. She is originally an Egyptian goddess. She is represented by a throne at times. The goddess is seen in Petra, Kaznek, as well as the temple of the winged lions. All right. All right. So, and then talk about the sacred objects or animal niches described as the miniature temples or adoton of a temple. They contain some stone, pillar, or betels that are carved out of rocks. So altars at times the Nabataeans use as use altars as representation of gods, sacred animals, eagles, serpents, sphinx, griffins, and other mythological figures decorate the tomb of the ancient Nabatean. Iconoclasm. There is little evidence of the Nabatean iconoclasm. The majority of the deities were portrayed as betels, sometimes carved in relief, and others would be carried around during possession. When the gods were depicted in the human form, they were oftentimes were found as a idol betels. All right, because of the Greco-Roman influence, there are statues of Nabatean gods. The goddess Isis is represented in human form by the Nabateans. This could be due to the fact that she is venerated in places like Egypt and Rome. Okay, so then it goes down to talk about the places of worship. Okay. So it says the Nabataeans had numerous places for religious practice and cult worship, known as the high places. The shrine, temple, and altars would usually be open air structures placed atop nearby mountains. All right. So it says the Nabatean kingdom can be broken up into 5 religious regions, each containing location of religious significance. The Negev and Hejah, the Haran, Central Jordan, Southern Jordan, and finally Northwest Saudi Arabia. All of these religious sites at these locations are in varying states of preservation, making it difficult to know which deities would have been worshipped at specific shrine, altars, and temples. It is also difficult to know the specific of the cult practices, meaning education speculation can be made. All right. So as you can see, these are the picture of the battles. All right. It says Betels are blocks of stone which represent the gods of the Nabateans. The term Betel derives from the Greek. I can't really say that. Anyways, in a myth, the Greeks told of Uranos, who created animated stones that fell from heaven. Betels were commonly placed on altars or platforms, and religious rituals were performed there. And frequently, Betels have been found in tombs. Dr. Gustave Dalman was the first to classify the many different types of betels. The different type of betels, according to Dr. Dalman, plain betels, rectangular slab, high rectangular slab with a rounded top, and semicircular and hemispherical slab. This one is dome-shaped spherical betel, eye betel, betels, face stylus. So eye betels and face stylus are of interest to scholars due to the inconsistency in what is largely understood as Nabatean anachronism. There is debate on whether the Betels were viewed as containers for gods or if they were seen as representation of the gods themselves. Grooves in the floors of niches and holes in the top of altars have led to the conclusion that Betels may have been stored for safekeeping, then transported to the worship site. Interesting. All right, so if you guys want to read any more about this information, you just go on here to Wikipedia and look up Nabatean religion. All right. Okay, and what's up, brother Vinyasa? Peace. My bad. I should have acknowledged you. All right, so let's go to where I was reading about the Nabatean culture. So right here, here's a book about the Nabatean builders of Petra, Dan Gibson. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scroll down to, hold on. I'm going to scroll down to where it says the culture, right? So now I'm not going to I'm going to go further down and see where I can find. All right, it says when one uses the word culture, it can encompass many different subjects. In the following 4 chapters, we will explore several facets of Nabataean life. In this chapter, we want to look at a number of topics such as Nabataean houses, ceramic water collection system. In the next chapter, 17, we will examine the Nabataean language, and in the following chapter 18, we will examine the basis of the old Nabataean culture as derived from the desert and Bedouin background. Okay, so it goes on to say, down through history, cultures have changed and adapted as outside pressure has been placed upon them. When there is little pressure, the change is usually slow and gradual. However, when extreme pressure is applied, such as in the case of domination by a foreign power, change can be quite rapid. When the Nabateans lived in the desert, their culture changed gradually. However, when it was required of them to change and adapt, the Nabateans demonstrate an amazing ability to adapt and adopt from those around them. Okay. So as you can see, they pretty much were like a syncretist in a way. They pretty much syncretized a lot of culture because of the influence they had. So they was influenced by the Egyptian, some of the gods they was worshiping from the Romans, Greco gods, and those from the Syrian culture. So yeah, they was very much influenced by that, and they pretty much combined a lot of stuff. All right. So let's just go down to let's go down to the very end. Okay. So it says Nabatean traders traveled widely. They had contact with the civilization of Europe, Egypt, Africa, Mesopotamia, southern Yemen, Persia, India, and even places such as China. These connections opened doors to the greater world around them, fostering an impressive borrowing of advantaged lifestyle elements, such extensive borrowing clouds the issue of which Nabatean cultural attributes are really Nabatean in origin. Certainly, features were adapted, and innovated from things they saw in other locations. Regardless of the confusion, it is clear that the native ability of the Nabatean resulted in the creation of a unique mosaic of arts, architecture, religion, and technology. In the face of Hellenistic and Roman influences, the Nabatean maintained a high level of political independence and were freer than any neighboring society to interpret outside elements in a distinctively Nabatean manner. An appreciation of technological sophistication is evidence in which many of Nabatean life, such as architecture, ceramic, and metallurgy, chemistry, mathematics, construction, water collection and distribution, shipbuilding, navigation, and even toxicology, as They borrowed, adapted, and interpreted. They mastered many different skills in art and thus created a unique Nabatean worldwide worldview and culture. All right, so down here it talks about the language. Okay, the language which they spoken. Um, okay, so it also talk about the language which they have spoken. Um, let's just look up. Let's just read on a little bit about the Nabataean language. Okay. Um, It says, as far as we know, the Nabateans were not great writers of books. Very little literature has passed down to us. We have no literature from the early years, and the famous Petra scrolls from the Byzantine era, while they contain only legal documents, these scrolls give us a glimpse into the life and time of Petra during the Byzantine era and give us excellent database Nabatean words. So the main source of Nabatean writing comes from the inscription made on tombs and from the graffiti on written on rocks and boulders throughout the Middle East. It seems that the Nabateans and other tribes would scratch their names and sometimes a message such as a lament for a loved one on the rock. These inscriptions are now being cataloged and much is being learned from examining them. All right, then. So let's look up the Nabatean language. Hmm. All right, so here it is, the Nabatean language. Oops. Now this writing look very familiar. What does it look similar to? Ooh, what does it look similar to? It looks similar to Hebrew and Arabic, right? It looks similar. So there should be some context clues over there. So based on the Nabatean language, it looks like it could be part of the Afro-Asiatic family, right? It looked like it'd be part of the Afro-Asiatic language family because it has a similarity of the Hebrew, the earliest form of Hebrew writing, and some of the Arabic influence mixed together. So that should tell you something. Okay. So that should tell you that it should be in some type of language family. All right. So let's go on to the next one. So the next thing right here, it says two families of alphabet. All right, so down here it says throughout the Middle East, graffiti is found in a number of different forms, but they seem to fall in two distinct family of alphabets. So it talks about the North Semitic alphabets. This alphabet was the earliest fully developed alphabet writing system in Arabian Persia, a peninsula. It was used in Syria as early as the 11th century BC and is probably the forerunner of all subsequent alphabetic scripts. Okay. And South Semitic alphabets, this term refers to any group of scripts originating in the Arabian Peninsula about 1000 BC. These scripts, most of which were used only in the southern Arabian Peninsula are of note because of their great age and because of the lack of any clear link between them and the North Semitic alphabets. All right, so therefore that lets you know that the Nabataean language is Semitic. Okay, and the Semitic language is part of what? The Afro-Asiatic family. So it's part of the Afro-Asiatic family. All right, so here's the title of the book again. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the pre-Islamic Arabia. All right, so this is where I had left off yesterday. The pre-Islamic Arabia, the land of the people, a short introduction. Arabic Arabia and the Arabian character. An outstanding institution of pre-Islamic Arabia is the Arabic language, a unique product of untorn ethnicity. It endured itself for some terms that later became obsolete. From biblical times till our own day, the growth and development of the Arabic language and its poetry reached its luxuriant flowering in Jalila poetry of the 6th century, of which the Mulakat were the creme de la creme. So if one was to ask what did the pre-Islamic Arabia have to offer, the answer would have to be its poetry, the cream of its language, and the preservation of those Christian heresies that were later incorporated into Islam. All right, salam, Continental. Salam to you, brother or sister. Thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. All right, so it says the pre-Islamic Arabian poetry is highly idiosyncratic, unique among poetries of other nations, even Arab poetry of later Islamic ages. It was the only surviving literature from a pre-literate age. Through pre-Islamic poetry, it's immensely rich metrically, lexically, and is informative of patterns of behavior and thought. However, it does not reflect all aspects of contemporary life in pre-Islamic Arabia, and was also known historically as the land of Christian heresies, which gave rise to the saying that was widespread in the Kurdistan of the northeast of late antiquity: Arabia heresum ferax, Arabia fertile in heresy. Such heresies took root among the Christians of Arabia and later became part of Islamic doctrine. And we're going to talk about that, okay? We're going to get into the concept about the Gospel of Barnabas, because that was one of the books that was a part of the Bible, but it was taken out the Bible. All right, but let's continue. Also, the idiosyncratic and highly autochthonous was the Arabian character. It was drastically shaped by geographical and climatic factors that conditioned the environment of the peninsula, which were instrumental in forming the character of the pre-Islamic Arabian tribesmen. The dominant characteristic of the desert tribesmen was the abaya, a pugnacious, intolerant, self-sufficient, cohesive, supremacist posturing, which to Islam was the hallmark of the Healey era and the essence of its ignorance. Pre-Islamic Abalia was the antithesis of the Islamic virtue of Hilm, magnanimous, tolerant, perceptive, tranquil wisdom. This assertive, pugnacious posturing was formed by the harsh, unpropitious, bleak environment and its immutable unrelenting to to deadness. Such a bleak environment led to constricted perception, a myopic view of the world, and certain shortcomings in some of the more humane understanding of human behavior. The bare existence of desert life bred into its sons a counterbalancing mindless arrogance and self-pride. The term Healey of the era of ignorance aptly described the pre-Islamic Bedouin in both his manners and his religious orientation. Exuberant pride in oneself and one's tribe was not only a right, but universally acknowledged as a social necessity, even a virtue. Although the pre-Islamic Arabian possessed many virtues which we consider laudable and worthy, such as courage, patience, fortitude, hospitality, giving relief and shelter to the destitute and the oppressed, humility could not be included among them. A certain ignorance pervaded his understanding religiously. If he was a pagan, he was more often not than not ignorant jahil of any doctrine on which his paganism is or might have been based. All right, so let's skip on further down. Let's talk about let's see what else they talking about. They talk about the pre-Islamic era and the Old Testament. Give me a moment. Let me blow my nose. All right. So I'm going back to where it says let's go down to where it says pre-Islamic Arabia and the Old Testament. So it says one significant point that is often missed is that pre-Islamic Northern Arabia is either Bible land or an extension of it outside the usual boundaries of biblical Palestine. There is much in northern and northwestern pre-Islamic Arabia that is Old Testament land, not only in topography, fauna, and history, but also in highly lauded biblical virtues of patience and fortitude represented by Job. Pre-Islamic Arab never tire of praising these two virtues as the epitome of manliness and strength of character, thereby raising the possibility that there could well have been an essential figure of antiquity who had rigorously upheld two virtues of patience and fortitude for them to emulate. All right. So right here it says the main link connecting pre-Islamic Northern Arabia to the Old Testament and biblical Palestine. It is suggested is the book of Job, and the analysis of some depth of this work is required to elucidate pre-Islamic Northern Arabia being biblical land. This Old Testament text indicates that monotheistic Arabs lived in northern Hijaz in the latter half of the 6th century BCE. A. Muzo gave evidence that the book of Job indeed belongs to the northern Hijaz region of northern Arabia, and J. Spencer Trimmerham states that the story of Job, whose homeland was the upper Nabatean region southwest of the Dead Sea, showed that there were Arabs with a monotheistic outlook in northern Hijaz in the latter half of the 6th century BCE. Okay. So one of the interesting paradoxes concerning the book of Job is that its hero Job was not a Jew but a Gentile, and the author of the book may well have been a non-Jew as well. The book of Job tells the story of two Jobs, not one. To introduce the book, the author retells a legend that was already an ancient one, many centuries before Job was born. Some scholars consider that the book of Job is based on a lost original text, of which the Hebrew text is a translation. This was the opinion of Ibrahim ibn Azar, the renowned medieval rabbinic commentator. Textual indication point to Job being a most ancient Semitic figure. The text contains so many Arabic and Aramic terms and forms of expression. So ancient is this story that it could be traced back to the Sumerian legend dating back to several millennia BCE. All right, so as you can see, it gets into talking about the Old Testament, and it talks about how the Old Testament, and especially the book of Job, is the story about those who live in Hajj, which is the northern part of Arabia. Okay. So to sum it up, based on this article, it's basically saying that all the Christian heresies, and for those of you that don't know what the term heresies is, the term heresies is basically based on the interpretation, right? Or based on the contrary idea of beliefs that is not in the Orthodox tradition or within the Orthodox tradition. So, like, if you have somebody that practices something or that believes in something, right, and it's not within the Holy Scripture, then it's considered as heresy. Okay. So some of the things that the Arab Christian was practicing or believed in that time period, it was not within the Christian doctrine. It was not within the Christian book. So it became a heresy. And those heresy led into the creation and formation of what we know today as modern Islam. All right. So now let's go ahead. And I have another book I want to show y'all. This book right here is called No God But God. Okay, it talks about the origin, evolution, and the future of Islam by Reza, Aslan. So let's go to the table of content. Okay, so it talks about the sanctuary in the desert. So let's look it up. All right, so in the arid dislocated basin of Mecca, surrounded on all sides by the bare mountains of the Arabian desert, stands a small, nondescript sanctuary that the ancient Arabs referred to as the Kaaba, the cube. The Kaaba is a squat, roofless edifice made of mortared stones and sunk into a valley of sand. Its four walls so low it is said a young goat can leap over them, are swathed in strips of heavy cloth. At its base, two small doors are chiseled into the gray stone, allowing entry into the inner sanctuary. It is here inside the cramped interior of the sanctuary that the gods of pre-Islamic Arabia reside. Kabal, the Syrian god of the moon; Al-Uzza, the powerful goddess the Egyptian knew as Isis; the Greeks called Aphrodite; Al-Kuba, the Nabatean god of writing and divination; Jesus, the incarnated God of Christians; and his holy mother Mary. Oh, it's interesting. And it says, in all there are said to be 360 idols housed in and around the Kaaba, representing every god recognized in the Arabian Peninsula. During the holy months, when the desert fairs and the great markets enveloped the city of Mecca, pilgrims from all over the peninsula made their way to this barren land to visit their tribal deities. Okay. And it says, they sang songs of worship and dance in front of the gods. They made sacrifices and prayed for help. Then, in a remarkable ritual, the origins which are a mystery, the pilgrims gather as a group and rotate around the Kaaba 7 times, some pausing to kiss each corner of the sanctuary before being captured and swept away again by the current of bodies. Now, this get very interesting. The pagan Arabs gather around the Kaaba believe their sanctuary to have been founded by Adam, the first man. They believe that Adam's original edifice was destroyed by the great flood, then rebuilt by Noah. They believe that after Noah, the Kaaba was forgotten for centuries until Abraham rediscovered it while visiting his firstborn son Ishmael and his concubine
Hagar, both of whom had been banished to this wilderness at the behest of Abraham's wife Sarah, and they believe it was at this very spot that Abraham nearly sacrificed Ishmael before being stopped by the promise that, like his younger brother Isaac, Ishmael will also sire a great nation, the descendants of whom now spin over the sandy Meccan valley like a desert whirlwind. Mm. So that's interesting when we hear the story about the Kaaba, right? Because you never hear about what the Kaaba actually is and what goes on inside of it. But it says, of course, these are just stories intended to convey what the Kaaba means, not where it came from. The truth is that no one knows who built the Kaaba or how long it has been there or been here. It is likely that the sanctuary was not even the original reason for the sanity of this place. Near the Kaaba is a well called Zazam, fed by a bountiful underground spring, which tradition claims had been placed there to nourish Hagar and Ishmael. It requires no stretch of imagination to recognize how a spring situated in the middle of the desert could become a sacred place for the wandering Bedouin tribes of Arabia. All right, so and said the Kaaba itself may have been erected many years later, not some sort of Arab pantheon, but as a secure place to store the consecrated objects used in the ritual that have evolved around Zazam. Indeed, the earliest tradition concerning the Kaaba claims that inside its wall was a pit dug into the ground, which contained treasure magically guarded by a snake. Oh, so the Muslim wasn't the only one worshiping the Kaaba. Let's just put it like that. All right, so let's see what else can we find on here. Hmm. Okay, so let's go down to here where it says the seventh circumambulation of the Kaaba, called Tawaf in Arabic and still the primary ritual of the annual Hajj pilgrimage, may have been intended to mimic the motion of the heavenly bodies. It was, after all, a common belief among ancient people that their temples and sanctuaries were terrestrial replicas of the cosmic mountain from which creation sprang. The Kaaba, like the pyramids in Egypt or the temple in Jerusalem, may have been constructed as an Axis Mundi, sometimes called a navel spot, a sacred space around which the universe revolves, the link between the earth and the solid dome of heaven. That would explain why there was once a nail driven into the floor of the Kaaba that the ancient Arabs referred to as the navel of the world. As G.R. Houghton has shown, the ancient pilgrims would sometimes enter the sanctuary, tear off their clothes, and place their own navels over the nail, thereby merging with the cosmos. That's a strange thing to do, right? So at last, as with so many things about the Kaaba, its origin are mere speculation. The only thing scholars can say with any certainty is that by the 6th century CE, this small sanctuary made of mud and stone had become the center of religious life in pre-Islamic Arabia, that intriguing yet ill-defined era of paganism that Muslims refer to as Jahiliyyah, the time of ignorance. And it says traditionally the Jahiliyyah has been defined by Muslims as an era of moral depravity and religious discord, a time when the sons of Ishmael had obscured belief in the one true God and plunged the Arabian Peninsula into the darkness of idolatry. But then, like the rising of the dawn, the Prophet Muhammad emerged in Mecca at the beginning of the 7th century, preaching a message of absolute monotheism and uncompromising morality. Through the miraculous revelation he received from God, Muhammad put an end to the paganism of the Arabs and replaced the time of ignorance with the universal religion of Islam. Okay, so in actuality, the religious experience of the pre-Islamic era was far more complex than this tradition suggests. It is true that before the rise of Islam, the Arabian Peninsula was dominated by paganism. But like Hinduism, paganism is a meaningless and somewhat derogatory catch-all term created by those outside the tradition to characterize what it is in reality in almost unlimited variety of beliefs and practices. The word paganist means a rustic villager or a boor, and was originally used by Christians as a term of abuse to describe those who follow any religion but theirs. In some ways, this is an appropriate designation. Unlike Christianity, paganism is not so much a unified system of beliefs and practices as it is a religious perspective, one that is a receptive to a multitude of influences and interpretation. Often, though not always, polytheistic paganism strive for neither universalism nor moral absolutism. There is no such thing as a pagan creed or a pagan canon. Nothing exists that could properly be termed pagan orthodoxy or pagan heterodoxy. Okay. Then it goes down to say, what is more when referring to paganism of the pre-Islamic Arabs? It is important to make a distinction between the nomadic Bedouin religious experience and the experience of those sedentary tribes that had settled in major population centers like Mecca. Bedouin paganism in 6th century Arabia may have encompassed a range of beliefs and practices, from fetishism to totemism to Mennonitism, ancestor cults, but it was not as concerned with the more metaphysical questions that were cultivated in the larger sedentary society of Arabia, particularly with regard to issues like the afterlife. This is not to say that Bedouin practiced nothing more than a primitive idolatry. On the contrary, there is every reason to believe that the Bedouin of pre-Islamic Arabia enjoyed a rich and diverse religious tradition. However, the nomadic lifestyle is one that requires a religion to address immediate concern. Which God can lead us to the water? Which God can heal our illness? All right. All right, so I'm gonna go down to here, right, where it talks about the origin of Allah and all of that and the paganism, but real fast, if y'all still following me. Okay, so basically, the pre-Islamic cultural practice was like, it was similar to Hinduism. Okay, they were very polytheistic. All right, so they didn't have no set or structure or boundary like they do in the current Islamic culture. There was no religious text that actually tell you like what is halal or haram and what is prohibited and what is not prohibited. So it was more so like you were connecting with the deities, and those deities represent they represent a form of nature. So they were like into the anthropomorphism, right, and personification. That's what their whole thing was. So yeah, their discipline was very similar to those of Hindu that practice the Hindu culture. Okay. So as you can see, during the pre-Islamic era, when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came through, he saw that there were a lot of people that was worshiping these different idols, and they had no structure. So he said, okay, get rid of your idols, right? We're going to be monotheistic, okay? That's going to be anaconism. That he didn't use the term that I'm using, but I'm just saying there was going to be anaconism. There was not going to be any form of what is it called? Unadulterated practice. So it's not going to be any form of unadulterated practice. There's going to be structure. There's going to be a foundation. Everything you follow is going to be by the command of Allah. So I was receiving this message from the angel named Jabril or Gabriel, and he sent me this message from Allah, and I became the chosen prophet. So Allah wanted me to give you guys the commands. So you guys heard it all before, right? It's just like Paul saying that he was the chosen one, right? To in the New Testament, okay? Basically, it was like the concept about Jesus being the chosen one, right? So you will see all of that. You will see all these prophets or these leaders that come along. If once you read all these different scripts, you'll see that these leaders came along. They all had a prophetic message, and their message came from God, and God told them something. It sounds all too familiar. So what you will see is there is syncretism of each religion ideology, even the ancient ones, and you will see that they got their inspiration from one religion, and the other religion got their inspiration from another religion, and then that other religion get its inspiration from the other religion. So it goes further back. All right. Okay, so let me just go ahead and continue. So real quick. So it says, in contrast, paganism among the Sematic society of Arabia had developed from its earlier and simpler manifestation into a complex form of neo-animism. All right, so animism deals with inanimated objects, all right, or just objects alone, whether they are animated or inanimated, if they have some form of conscience or life to it, etc. That's what animism deals with. Okay, it's like panpsychism, basically. So, anyways, it talks about the simpler manifestation in a complex form of neo-animism, providing a host of divine and semi-divine intermediaries who stood between the creator God and his creation. And this creator God was called Allah, which is not a proper name, but a contraction of the word Allah or Elah, meaning simply the God. Like his Greek counterpart Zeus, Allah was originally an ancient rain sky deity who had been elevated into the role of the supreme God of the pre-Islamic Arabs. Though a powerful deity to swear by Allah's eminent status in the Arab pantheon render him, like most high gods, beyond the supplications of ordinary people. Only in times of great peril would anyone bother consulting him. So otherwise, it was far more epidemic to turn to the lesser and more accessible gods who acted as Allah's intercessor, the most powerful of whom were his three daughters, Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. Okay. So it goes on to say there were no priests and no pagan scriptures in the pre-Islamic Arabia, but that does not mean that the gods remained silent. They regularly revealed themselves through the aesthetic utterance of a group of cultic officials known as the Kahins. The Kahins were poets who functioned primarily as soothsayers and who, for a fee, would fall into a trance in which they would reveal divine messages through rhyming couplets. Poets already had an important role in pre-Islamic society as bards, tribal historians, social commentators, dispenser of moral philosophy, and on occasion administrators of justice. Right? But the Kahins represented a more spiritual function of the poet, emerging from every. The Kahins interpreted dreams, cleared up crimes, found lost animals, settled disputes, and expounded upon ethics, as with their Parthians counterparts at Delphi. However, the Kahins' oracles were vague and deliberate in price. In price, it was the supplicant's responsibility to figure out what the gods actually meant. All right. So, if you guys want to check out that book, I won't go any further. That's a good book, by the way. This book is called No God But God, The Origin, Evolution, and Future of Islam, Reza Al-Shalam. I think this is a very good book that everybody should check out. So now, we're going to get to this. So this is another book talk about the religion of the Nabatean, a Conspectus by John F. Healey. All right, so this book came out in 2000. So basically go into the religious practice of the Nabatean people, pretty much what was covered in Wikipedia. So you guys can check that out on your own, okay, if you like. And I'll also make sure that I'll put these in the description section, in the description link as well, if I don't forget. All right, so let's talk about the Gospel of Barnabas. Oh, so here it is, the Gospel of Barnabas. Uh-oh. Let's look up the Gospel of Barnabas. So it is a non-canonical gospel. It is a book depicting the life of Jesus, which claimed to be by the biblical Barnabas, who in this work is one of the 12 apostles. Two manuscripts are known to have existed, both dated to the late 16th and early 17th centuries, with one written in Italian, the other one in Spanish. It is surviving only in a partial 18th century transcript. Barnabas is about the same length as the four canonical Gospels put together, with the bulk being devoted to an account of Jesus' ministry, much of it harmonized from accounts also found in the canonical Gospels. In some key respect, it conforms to the Islamic interpretation of Christian origins and contradicts the New Testament teaching of Christianity. All right. All right, so let's go further down. All right, so I talk about the analysis. So this work clearly contradicts the New Testament biblical account of Jesus and his ministry, but has a strong parallel with the Islamic faith. Not only mention Muhammad by name, but including the Shahada. It is strongly anti-Pauline and anti-Trinitarian in tone. In this work, Jesus is described as a prophet and not the Son of God, while Paul is called the deceived. Furthermore, the Gospel of Barnabas states that Jesus escaped crucifixion by being raised alive to the heaven, while Judas Iscariot, the traitor, was crucified in his place. These beliefs, in particular, that Jesus is a prophet of God and raised alive without being crucified, conform to or resembles Islamic teaching, which say that Jesus is a major prophet who did not die on the cross, but was taken alive by angels to God. All right, so that is according to the Wikipedia, and I have the books in itself. Okay, so this here is the last but not least, the Gospel of Barnabas. What does the Gospel of Barnabas say? All right, it said the Gospel of Barnabas is a apocryphal gospel that is a life of Jesus purportedly written by a first-hand observer that is a variance with the picture represented in the Bible. However, it is unique among the apocrypha in it that it is a Muslim gospel, that it is presented Jesus as a human prophet, not the Son of God, and as a forerunner of Muhammad. Okay, according to Western scholarship, it is a 14th century forgery, extant now only in Spanish and in Italian manuscript, but even among scholars there is disagreement as whether or not some of the material contained in the book is older. All right, so let's go down to where it says, chapter 38, it says, Then John answered, Master, let us wash ourselves as God commanded by Moses. Jesus said, Thank ye that I am come to destroy the law and the prophets. Verily I say unto you, as God liveth, I am not come to destroy, but rather to observe. For every prophet has observed the law of God, and all that God by the other prophets have spoken. Okay. And it says, As God lives, in whose presence my soul standeth, no one that breaketh one least proceed can be pleasing to God, but shall be least in the kingdom of God, for he shall have no part there. Moreover, I say unto you that one syllable of the law of God cannot be broken without the gravest sin. But I do you to wit that it is necessary to observe that which God saith by Isaiah the prophet with these words, wash you and be clean, take away your thoughts from my eyes. Verily I say to you that all the water of the sea will not wash him who with his heart loved iniquities and or iniquities. And furthermore, I say unto you that no one will make prayer pleasing to God if he be not washed, but will burden his soul with sin like to idolatry. Okay, believe me in sooth that if man should make prayer to God as is fitting, he would obtain all that he should ask. Remember Moses, the servant of God, who with his prayer searched Egypt, opened the Red Sea, and there drowned Pharaoh and his host. Remember Joshua, who made the sun still stand. Made the sun stand still. Samuel, who smote with fear the innumerable host of the Philistines. Elijah, who made the fire to rain from heaven. Elisha raised a dead man, and so many other holy prophets who by prayer obtained all that they asked. But those men truly did not seek their own in their matters, but sought only God and his honor. All right. And then this is where they talk about, this is where the Shahada came from. And it says right here, going down to where it says, Adam has sprung upon, and this is chapter 39. All right, so this is when John said, what hast thou spoken, O master? But we lack to know how man sinned through pride. And then this is what Jesus answered to John. He says, Adam have sprung upon his feet, saw in the air a writing that shone like the sun, which said, there is only one God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. Whereupon Adam opened his mouth and said, I thank thee, O Lord, my God, that thou hast destined to create me. But tell me, I pray thee, what meaneth the message of these words? Muhammad is the messenger of God. Have there been other men before me? And it goes on to say, then said God, be thou welcome, O my servant Adam. I tell thee that thou art the first man whom I have created, and he whom thou hast seen mentioned is thy son, who shall come into the world many years hence, and shall be my messenger, for whom I have created all things, who shall give light to the world when he shall come, whose soul was set in a celestial splendor 60,000 years before I made anything. And it says, Adam besought God, saying, Lord, grant me this writing upon the nails of the finger of my hand. Then God gave to the first man upon his thumb that writing upon the thumbnail of the right hand. It said, there is only one God. And upon the thumbnail of the left, it says, Muhammad is the messenger of God. Then with fathering affection, the first man kissed those words and rubbed his eyes and said, blessed be that day when thou shalt come to the world. Seeing the man alone, God said, it is not well that he should remain alone. Wherefore he made him to sleep and took a rib from his near heart, filling the place with flesh. Of that rib made he Eve and gave her to Adam for his wife. He set the twine of them as Lord of paradise, to whom he said, behold, I give unto you every fruit to eat, except for the apple and the corn. Whereof he said, beware that in no wise ye eat of these fruits, for ye shall become unclean in so much that I shall not suffer you to remain here, but shall drive you forth, and ye shall suffer great miseries. All right. So as you can see in chapter 39 of the Gospel of Barnabas, it talks about the messenger of Allah being Muhammad. So Muhammad is considered as the messenger of Allah in the book. Okay, so that's where they get the concept of the Shahada from when Adam was revealed by God that there is a messenger that was going to come to the earth, and he was going to deliver the message, and that's his name was Muhammad. So Adam was the first one to say that Muhammad is the messenger of God. All right. So when he made that declaration, that became the Shahada. Okay, so again, oops, you can find it on sacred text. Okay, and let me pull it back up. All right, so right here, the sacred text is Gospel of Barnabas. The translation is Lansdale and Lord Bragg, Gospel of Barnabas. All right, and this is where you can find here a lot of the information. All right, so that's all that I have for today. Okay. And I thank you guys for tuning in watching. For those of you that were watching, thank you so much. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you guys be safe. I hope you guys take a lot out this video. So make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, and all that great stuff. And until next time, y'all take it easy. Peace and power elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off saying deuces, and thank y'all so much for your support. All right. Peace.